You are not broken. Stop fixing yourself and start leading yourself. I know that sounds counterintuitive in a world obsessed with self-improvement, but stick with me because what I'm about to share might completely change how you see your own growth journey. If you've been watching videos like this one, there's a good chance you've fallen into what I call the endless fixing trap. You've probably got a mental list of everything wrong with you that needs to be corrected, improved, or completely overhauled. Maybe you've been told you're too sensitive, not confident enough, or that you procrastinate too much. Sound familiar? Before we dive deep, if you want a weekly reminder that you are already enough and capable of evolution without self-destruction, hit that subscribe button. This channel is built on the foundation that growth doesn't require you to hate where you are right now. Today's insights are inspired by Dale Carnegie's timeless wisdom, but with a modern twist that I think Carnegie would appreciate. He understood something profound that most personal development misses entirely. True improvement doesn't come from fixing what's broken about you. It comes from accepting what's already whole and allowing that wholeness to naturally expand. Carnegie once said that most people spend their entire lives wishing they were somebody else, never realizing that the person they already are has untapped potential waiting to be discovered. He wasn't talking about settling for mediocrity. He was talking about the revolutionary idea that self-acceptance is actually the fastest path to genuine transformation. Think about it this way. When you're constantly focused on what's wrong with you, where does your energy go? It goes into resistance, self-criticism, and fighting against your natural tendencies. But when you start from a place of enoughness, that same energy gets redirected into curiosity, experimentation, and aligned action. This isn't just feel-good philosophy. There's real psychology behind why the fixing mentality backfires so spectacularly. When we approach ourselves like a problem to be solved, we activate what researchers call the threat detection system in our brains. This puts us in a state of chronic stress that actually makes learning and growth more difficult, not easier. Let me paint a picture of what the endless fixing trap looks like in real life. Maybe you wake up already mentally cataloging everything you need to improve about yourself today. You scroll through social media and immediately start comparing your behind the scenes to everyone else's highlight reel. You read another self-help book that promises to finally fix whatever's wrong with you this time. You set impossible standards for yourself and then beat yourself up when you inevitably fall short. You overpromise and underdeliver because you're trying to be the person you think you should be instead of working with who you actually are. You ruminate endlessly about past mistakes and future failures, creating a mental environment where growth becomes nearly impossible. Sound exhausting? That's because it is. The fixing mentality turns personal development into a full-time job of being disappointed in yourself. And here's the cruel irony. The harder you try to fix yourself, the more broken you feel. I see this pattern everywhere. People who've read hundreds of self-help books, but still feel fundamentally flawed. Individuals who've tried every productivity system, but still struggle with the same basic challenges. Professionals who've attended countless workshops, but continue to feel like imposters in their own lives. The problem isn't that they're not trying hard enough. The problem is that they're approaching growth from a place of deficiency instead of abundance. They're trying to add more tools to fix themselves instead of recognizing that they already have everything they need to succeed. This is where we need to make what I call the enough shift. It's a fundamental reframe that separates your inherent value as a human being from your variable performance in different areas of life. Your worth isn't determined by your productivity, your achievements, or how well you measure up to some external standard. Let me be crystal clear about what I mean by enough. I'm not saying you're perfect. I'm not saying you don't have areas where you can grow and improve. What I'm saying is that your fundamental value as a person is not conditional on fixing those areas. You can be enough and still evolve. You can be whole and still want to expand. You can be complete and still choose to grow. Think of it like this. A seed is already complete as a seed. It doesn't need to fix anything about its seedness to become a tree. The growth happens naturally when the conditions are right, not through self-criticism or force. The seed doesn't hate itself into becoming a tree. It accepts its current form while allowing natural expansion to occur. This shift changes everything about how you approach personal development. Instead of asking what's wrong with me that I need to fix, you start asking what's already working, that I can build on. Instead of forcing change through willpower and discipline, you create conditions that make growth feel natural and sustainable. The enough shift also transforms how you handle setbacks and mistakes. When you're operating from a fixing mentality, every mistake feels like evidence that you're fundamentally flawed. But when you're operating from enoughness, mistakes become information that helps you navigate more skillfully next time. Now here's where most people get this wrong. They think accepting yourself means giving up on growth. They worry that if they stop being hard on themselves, they'll become lazy or complacent. But research consistently shows the opposite. Self-compassion actually increases motivation and resilience compared to self-criticism. Before we talk about what to add to your life, we need to talk about what to subtract. I've found that most people who feel stuck aren't missing some magical technique or strategy. They're carrying unnecessary weight that's slowing down their natural growth process. Let me share the 3 most common self-sabotaging habits I see people carrying around like invisible backpacks full of rocks. The first is self-deprecation. This is the constant stream of negative commentary about yourself that runs in the background of your mind. You know, that voice that says things like, "I'm so stupid, I always mess things up," or "I'm not good at anything." Self-deprecation might feel like humility or realism, but it's actually a form of mental pollution that contaminates every other effort you make to grow. How can you build confidence while simultaneously tearing yourself down? How can you take intelligent risks while telling yourself you always mess things up? The second habit to subtract is overpromising. This is when you commit to being someone you're not ready to be yet, usually to gain approval or avoid disappointment. You promise to wake up at 5 a.m. when you're naturally a night person. You commit to networking events when you're an introvert who needs recovery time. You agree to deadlines you know you can't meet because you want to appear capable. Overpromising creates a cycle of failure and self-judgment that reinforces the very inadequacy you're trying to overcome. Every time you fail to keep an unrealistic promise to yourself or others, you collect more evidence that you can't be trusted, that you're not disciplined enough, that something is wrong with you. The third habit to subtract is rumination. This is the mental hamster wheel, where you replay past mistakes or rehearse future disasters over and over again. Rumination masquerades as problem solving, but it's actually just anxiety dressed up as productivity. Real problem solving leads to action. Rumination leads to paralysis. These 3 habits, self-deprecation, overpromising, and rumination, create a mental environment where growth becomes exponentially more difficult. It's like trying to plant a garden in toxic soil. You can use the best seeds and techniques in the world, but if the soil is contaminated, nothing will thrive. Subtracting these habits isn't about perfection, it's about awareness. Start noticing when you're engaging in these patterns. When you catch yourself in self-deprecating thoughts, pause and ask what a good friend would say to you in this situation. When you feel tempted to overpromise, take a moment to consider what you can realistically commit to given your current capacity and circumstances. When you notice rumination starting, acknowledge that your brain is trying to help you solve problems, but redirect that energy toward one small actionable step instead of endless mental rehearsal. Now let's talk about the 3-2-1 framework. This is a simple structure that helps you build from your existing foundation instead of trying to construct an entirely new you from scratch. It starts with identifying 3 innate strengths you already possess. These aren't skills you've learned or achievements you've earned. They're natural tendencies and qualities that show up consistently across different areas of your life. Maybe you're naturally curious, naturally empathetic, or naturally persistent. Maybe you're good at seeing patterns, connecting with people, or finding creative solutions. The key is to look for what comes easily to you that others find challenging. What do people often ask for your help with? What feels natural, even when it's difficult? These strengths are your foundation. They're not accidents or flukes. They're core parts of who you are that deserve to be acknowledged and built upon. Once you've identified your 3 innate strengths, the next step is establishing 2 clear boundaries. Boundaries aren't walls that keep you isolated. They're guidelines that help you operate in alignment with your natural energy and values. They protect your capacity to show up as your best self consistently. One boundary might be about energy management. For example, if you're an introvert, you might establish a boundary around taking recovery time after social events, instead of pushing through until you're completely drained. If you're naturally creative, you might establish a boundary around protecting your most creative hours from administrative tasks. The other boundary might be about values alignment. This could be saying no to opportunities that look good on paper, but don't align with what actually matters to you. It could be refusing to engage in conversations that consistently leave you feeling worse about yourself or others. Boundaries aren't selfish. They're how you maintain the conditions that allow your strengths to flourish. When you honor your boundaries, you show up with more energy, creativity, and genuine enthusiasm in the areas where you can make your best contributions. The final part of the framework is one gentle daily micro-action. Notice that word, gentle. This isn't about forcing yourself into a rigid routine or pushing through resistance. It's about identifying one small action that feels aligned with who you're naturally becoming. This micro-action should be so small that it feels almost silly not to do it. Maybe it's writing one sentence in a journal. Maybe it's taking 3 conscious breaths before checking your phone in the morning. Maybe it's sending one genuine message of appreciation to someone in your life. The power isn't in the action itself. The power is in the daily practice of honoring your commitment to yourself in a gentle, sustainable way. Every time you follow through on this micro-commitment, you're building evidence that you can trust yourself. You're proving to your own nervous system that growth doesn't require suffering. Let me share a 7-day experiment that will help you put all of this into practice. For the next week, I want you to commit to using language without self-insult. Every time you catch yourself about to say something critical about yourself, pause and either say nothing or reframe it neutrally. Instead of, "I'm so stupid for making that mistake," try, "I made a mistake and I can learn from it." Instead of, "I'm terrible at this," try, "I'm still learning this skill." Instead of, "I always mess things up," try, "This didn't go as planned and I can adjust my approach." At the same time, track 3 simple metrics each day. Rate your mood, sleep quality, and focus on a scale of 1 to 10. Don't try to optimize these numbers, just observe them. Notice if there's any correlation between how you speak to yourself and how you feel overall. This experiment isn't about perfection. You're going to slip back into old patterns sometimes, and that's completely normal. The goal is awareness and gentle course correction. Every time you notice yourself being self-critical, you're actually succeeding at the real practice, which is developing the observer part of your mind. By the end of 7 days, you'll likely notice that the quality of your inner dialogue has a direct impact on your energy, creativity, and overall well-being. You might also notice that being kind to yourself doesn't make you lazy or complacent. If anything, it gives you more energy for the things that actually matter. Here's what I want you to remember as we wrap up. You are not a project to be completed or a problem to be solved. You are a human being with innate worth and natural capacity for growth. The gap between who you are and who you're becoming isn't evidence of your inadequacy. It's evidence of your potential. The fixing mentality keeps you trapped in a cycle of self-judgment that makes genuine growth nearly impossible. But the enough mentality creates space for curiosity, experimentation, and sustainable transformation. You can honor where you are while still moving toward where you want to be. Start by subtracting the 3 self-sabotaging habits we discussed. Notice when you're engaging in self-deprecation, overpromising, or rumination. Replace these patterns with the 3-2-1 framework. Build from your strengths, establish clear boundaries, and commit to one gentle, daily action. Try the 7-day language experiment and pay attention to how changing your inner dialogue affects your overall experience of life. Remember that this is practice, not perfection. Every moment of awareness is a victory worth celebrating. In our next video, we're going to explore the danger of seeing too much. Sometimes our ability to perceive problems and potential improvements becomes a liability that prevents us from appreciating what's already working. We'll dive into how to maintain healthy vision without becoming overwhelmed by everything you could potentially fix or optimize. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Share which of the 3 fixing habits resonates most with your experience. Is it self-deprecation, overpromising, or rumination? Which one are you going to focus on subtracting first? Also, let me know what topics you'd like me to cover in future videos. If this message resonated with you, please share it with someone who might benefit from hearing that they are already enough. Sometimes the most revolutionary thing we can do is remind each other of our inherent worth while still supporting each other's growth and evolution. Remember, you're not broken and you don't need fixing. You need honoring. And from that place of honor, everything else becomes possible. I'll see you in the next video, where we explore how to see clearly without seeing too much.